Today was Friday, our first full day on vacation in sunny Southern California, and we had just returned from a trip to Knott's Berry Farm in Orange County. I had been there once before, many years ago, while stationed at the now-closed Marine Corps Air Base at El Toro. We all had a great time, and since there were still several hours of sunlight left, we decided to spend some time at the pool. Before I get any further, let me tell you a little bit about us. My name is Shane McKnight. I'm 39, pushing 40, and I'm the lead software developer for an aerospace firm that specializes in avionics for both military and commercial aircraft. You might think it odd that a software developer would work in a setting like that, but you'd be amazed at how much software is used in modern aircraft. I started there after finishing college 13 years ago. I spent 4 years in the service as an avionics technician working on fighter aircraft, and it was a perfect fit for the job. I met Kay shortly after I arrived in town on a blind date. Kay is 3 years younger than me and works at a fairly large medical clinic in town as a nurse. Standing at just 5 feet 6 inches, her pretty face and long blonde hair had me hooked from the start. We dated, fell in love, and got married after a couple of years. We bought a house on the outskirts of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We've been married now for 13 years and have 2 sons, John, now 10, and Robert, just 2 years younger. Thankfully, both of them favor their mother, and I suspect they'll be attracting the girls in fairly short order. Like his mother, John sports blonde hair, but Robert's hair is more sandy-colored, like Kay's father. Kay had a difficult time with Robert's pregnancy and convinced me to get a vasectomy after he was born. I reluctantly agreed and had it done at the clinic where she works. Kay said it could be reversed if we ever decided to have children again, so I went along with her request. As far as I could tell, things had been good for us so far. We both had good jobs we liked, a nice house, 2 cars, 2 children, and a somewhat active sex life. I thought I had it all. Sure, we had issues in our marriage like anyone else, but we always seemed to be able to work things out. At the time this happened, I had no idea that my whole world was about to fall apart and that this would be the last weekend we ever spent together as a family. As I watched Kay put on her new bikini, she told me she bought it for the trip, and I loved looking at her in it. At 36, I thought she could easily pass for someone 5 or even 10 years younger. I whistled as she modeled the skimpy 2-piece suit for me. Forget the pool, I told her. Why don't we stay here and warm up the bed instead? She laughed and playfully slapped my arm. Is that all you ever think about? She asked. When I think about you, it is, I told her, wrapping my arms around her. Well, we'd better get to the pool before it gets too late, she said. Go check on the boys, would you, please? Of course, I said. The hotel suite we got for the week was quite large and featured 2 bedrooms off a central room. Each bedroom had its own bathroom. It also featured a kitchen. It was more like a small apartment than a regular hotel room. It cost a pretty penny, to be sure, but in my mind, my family was worth it. The boys slept in one room while Kay and I slept in the other. I checked on the boys and verified they were ready to go. Once I finished that, we headed to the pool. I saw Kay looking at something on her phone and wondered what she was doing. Get anything? I asked. It seemed that she was always on that thing and almost never let it out of her sight. She shook her head. No, just filling in our folks on the day, she said. Her folks had lived in the Pittsburgh area for many years, but mine were still in my native Florida and were now retired. I thought nothing more of it, and we went to the pool. After playing in the water with the boys for a while, I got out and dried myself off. Before I could sit with my wife, however, a fairly tall, clean-shaven man approached us. He appeared to be in his mid-30s, had short dark hair, and wore a pair of shorts and a t-shirt with a short-sleeved shirt over that. He introduced himself to us as Dan and shook our hands. Mind if I join you for a bit? He asked, sitting in a chair next to Kay. There were plenty of open chairs by the pool, and I couldn't help but wonder why he chose to join us. Before I sat down, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card that said he was an account executive, salesman, for Acme Medical Supplies and was based out of Columbus, Ohio, about 3 hours down the freeway from us. Isn't Acme one of the companies your clinic uses? I asked Kay. I had seen one of their vehicles at the clinic a couple of times in the past. She nodded. Yes, they're one of several companies we use. She turned to Dan. Do you ever make it to Pittsburgh? He nodded. Yes, I do, about once every 2 or 3 weeks. My territory stretches from Columbus to Pittsburgh. I see. So what brings you here? I'm here for a convention starting up this weekend. I'll probably be here for most of the week. We talked for a bit longer and learned that he actually lived with his wife and 2 girls in Zanesville, a town along Interstate 70 between Columbus and Pittsburgh. Dan described himself as a happily married man, despite living in a house full of women. He joked that apparently he was only able to sire girls. That's funny, it seems that Shane can only produce boys. I recalled reading an article once that said it was the man who determined the sex of a child, depending on whether the sperm carried an X or a Y chromosome. He spent some time with us and even played a game of water volleyball in the pool with the boys and me. He seemed like a nice enough fellow, and I saw nothing between him and Kay that caused concern, but for some reason, my radar was active and on overdrive. Eventually, we decided it was time for dinner and got out of the water. Dan said his goodbyes, telling us he enjoyed the afternoon and hoped to see us again. We enjoyed our evening meal and finally went to the room. Imagine, Kay said after we got into our bedroom, having only girls. Maybe Dan can give me the girl I've always wanted. What? I asked myself. Where the hell did this come from? Don't even joke about something like that. Remember, it was your idea to have me snipped after Robert was born, and I absolutely will not tolerate any cheating. Oh, I was only joking. I wouldn't do something like that to you. I love you too much. I love you too, but I didn't find anything funny about what you said. Nothing more was said, but for a moment, I thought I saw guilt on her face. Maybe I was just reading too much into what she said. After spending time with the family in the central part of our suite, we sent the boys to bed and headed into our room. After I was ready for bed, Kay, who was still wearing her bikini, said she couldn't sleep and wondered if I would mind if she went for a late swim. I don't mind. Want me to join you? No, someone needs to stay here with the boys. I shouldn't be too long. Okay, I said. She got up and headed out the door. Since our 3rd floor suite overlooked the pool and jacuzzi, I grabbed my camera and placed it on its tripod. I love taking pictures and videos of my wife when she wasn't looking. She was the most beautiful woman in the world to me, and I simply enjoyed watching her. I started the camera and zoomed in after I saw her walk into the fenced-off pool area. She slipped into the water and swam around for a while, then got out. She dried herself off and sat in one of the lounge chairs along the pool. After a while, I saw movement and zeroed in. Dan had just entered the pool area, still in his shorts and t-shirt. He sat next to her, and they talked for a while. I thought I saw her look up at our suite as if she was checking to see if I was watching. I knew the windows were tinted, and I was far enough back from them in the darkened room that she wouldn't have seen me. Then she bent over and seemed to give him a kiss. I zoomed in to get a closer shot, but she and Dan got up out of their chairs and walked out of the pool area together, and I wasn't able to get a clear shot. I thought that maybe Kay was on her way back up to our suite, so I turned off the camera and took it off the tripod. I laid back on the bed, processing what I had just seen. Was she cheating on me with some guy we just met? I looked at the dresser and saw that she had left her phone behind. For a moment, I considered opening it up to see what she was doing, but I changed my mind. I didn't want to invade her privacy only to learn there was nothing going on. I waited and waited, but Kay never showed up. Damn, I wondered, how long does it take to get into an elevator to the 3rd floor? 2 hours later, she walked into our bedroom, and I could tell something was different. For starters, she was sweaty and smelled different. I couldn't quite place the odor, though. About time you came back up. I saw you leave the pool area a couple of hours ago. Sorry. Dan came down, and we talked for a bit, then went into the restaurant and had a few drinks and chatted. I guess I lost track of the time. Damn, I thought, the witch just lied to me. I know what alcohol smells like, and she certainly didn't have any alcohol on her breath. I've been wanting you for so long, I said, taking her in my arms. As she took off her bikini bottom, I saw what looked like smears of off-white gooey liquid on it, and there was no doubt about what it was, and no doubt that it didn't come from me. Come on, baby, she moaned. Suddenly, I had no desire to ever touch her again, and I started getting sick to my stomach. I couldn't believe she actually wanted to give me sloppy seconds. The witch! I got up and bolted for the bathroom. I closed and locked the door and barely made it to the toilet before I threw up. It seemed like I was throwing up everything I had eaten all week. Kay tapped on the door. Sweetie, Are you all right? I'm sick to my stomach, I said in between dry heaves. After I finished, I washed my hands several times to make sure I got all of her lover's goo off of me. I washed my face and sat back down on the toilet. How long has this been going on? I asked myself. Why would she do this to us? It's not like I was gone all the time, and I certainly didn't let myself get out of shape. Why? I asked myself over and over. It's amazing the things that go through a man's mind at a time like this. Was my whole marriage a sham? Are the boys even mine? Damn her. I'm not even sure how long I sat there contemplating all this. Eventually, she tapped on the door again. What? I yelled. Sweetie, do I need to call a doctor for you? She asked quietly. No, I'll be out in a bit, I said. Making sure I was cleaned up, I sprayed some Lysol in the bathroom to cover up the smell of my vomit and walked back into the bedroom. I had no desire to look at the woman I thought I would grow old with. She tried to approach me, but I waved her off. We laid back down on the bed, and for the first time in our married life, I rolled away from her without even so much as a goodnight kiss. I love you, she said quietly. I said nothing in return. Good night, she finally said before turning on her side. I thought I heard her sob a few times, but I simply didn't care anymore. Finally, Saturday rolled around, and I got myself up out of the bed. I didn't get much sleep the night before, and what sleep I did get was filled with nightmares of Kay and Dan having sex in the bed with me lying there, unable to move, helpless to do anything. I said nothing to Kay and did my business in the bathroom. I had promised to take the kids to Disneyland, and nothing Kay could do would make me break that promise. How are you feeling this morning? Kay asked as we got dressed. I hope you're feeling better than last night. I feel like crap right now, I growled. Maybe you should stay here today, she said. I shook my head. I promised to take the boys to Disneyland, and that's what I intend to do. At least I don't break my promises. She recoiled a bit from that but said nothing. We got dressed and took the boys downstairs for breakfast, saying almost nothing to each other. Dan came to our table as we ate. He grabbed a chair and sat at the corner between Kay and me. For a moment, I thought I saw a smirk on his face as he did so. Kay looked at him, all smiles. I wanted to rip his head off. So what's on your agenda for the day? He asked. We're going to Disneyland, Kay said. Oh, that sounds like fun. Mind if I tag along? I couldn't believe the nerve of this a-hole. What about your convention? I asked, hoping I sounded neutral enough to keep the two cheaters off guard. Oh, it's just a bunch of boring seminars today. I've heard all that stuff before. Well, Dan, I think Shane wanted to make this a family outing, Kay said, looking at me. Good for her, I thought, even though it was a bit too late. Dan shrugged his shoulders. That's right, Dan. I promised my family a day at Disneyland, and that's what I'm going to give them. I understand. Family is the most important thing. Yeah, I thought, too bad you didn't think of that while you were screwing my wife last night. Maybe next time, he added. I don't think so, I thought to myself. You guys have a good time, he said, standing up. We stood up as well, as we had all finished our breakfast. As we left, I thought I saw him signal Kay, telling her to call him later. What's gotten into you? She asked me as we got on the bus for Disneyland. You were so cold to Dan. I could ask the same of you, dear wife, I said, emphasizing the word wife. Or should I be asking who's gotten into you? Shane, that's not nice, she said, pouting. Please, I said sarcastically. Look, I added, trying to sound calm, let's just have a good day for the boys' sake, okay? Okay, Shane. I don't know what it is that's gotten you so upset lately, but whatever it is, I'm sorry, okay? Yeah, I said in a neutral tone of voice. Normally, I would have hugged and kissed her, and we would have put our differences behind us. But not this time. After what she tried to do to me last night, I didn't even want to touch her or look at her, and there was no way she was going to sweet-talk her way out of this. She sat back, deflated, perhaps upset that her attempt to get me to warm up to her didn't work. I hope you're not going to be mad for the rest of our vacation, she said. I looked at her, saying nothing. We spent the day at Disneyland, and I made sure the boys had a good time. I pretty much ignored Kay for much of the trip but tried to remain civil for the boys' sake. It wasn't easy, but I think I managed to pull it off. More than once, however, I saw her texting someone on her phone. Was she texting Dan? Who knows, I thought. It was a fairly tired family that crawled back on the bus that afternoon. I looked at Kate after we got seated. Well, did you have a good day? I asked. She nodded her head. Yes, I did. It would have been better if you had actually spoken to me, though. Sorry, I'm still not feeling that good from last night, I added. Maybe you should try to get a good night's sleep tonight, she said. Yeah, maybe, I thought. As if a good night's sleep will take away your cheating. We rode the rest of the way in silence and grabbed dinner when we got back to the hotel. When we got to the room, I decided to try one last time with Kay. I approached her and wrapped my arms around her. I'm sorry I've been such a bear. Why don't we put the kids to bed and enjoy some private makeup time together? I'd love to, dear, but my period started just a bit ago. I'm sorry. What? I asked myself. I'm no doctor, but I'm not stupid. I knew her last period had just ended a week before we left Pittsburgh. What kind of game is she playing? I'm sorry too. Well, I'm bushed. I think I'm going to lie down for a bit. Why don't you do that, dear? If you don't mind, I'm going to go down to the pool for a while. Yeah, go ahead, I said, resigned to the fact that she would probably be in Dan's bed getting screwed within the next half hour. I watched as she walked out the door, still wearing her shorts and t-shirt. I pulled out my camera and set it up to see if I could catch them together. Sure enough, they met at the pool. This time, I zoomed in to get a close-up. As I watched, they kissed, his hand on her hips, then talked for a while before leaving. These weren't the actions of people who had just met. This time, I got clear pictures and video. I was certain they were heading back to his room. I sat on the bed and thought about what I should do. Part of me wanted to find his room number and go beat his butt, but I knew I'd only end up in jail. Then I saw she left her purse and phone on the dresser. I picked up her phone and saw it was locked. I knew her passcode was either John or Robert's birthday, so I tried using the month and day of John's birthday. Bingo, I was in. I started going through her text messages, and that's when I knew what was going on. From what I could tell, the two of them had been going at it hard and heavy for the last year. As it turned out, Dan was Acme's representative for the clinic she worked for and made regular stops there every other week. During that time, they engaged in quickies whenever they could find enough time. But something changed drastically within the last couple of months. Kay started talking to Dan about getting pregnant with a girl, and she thought he would be the best candidate to get her knocked up. She told him about our planned week-long vacation and actually suggested he try to make it to California so they could be together. Making matters worse, it seemed Dan's wife Alicia knew all about their plans. Apparently, they had some kind of arrangement where they each took on different lovers from time to time. Over the course of the next several weeks, they plotted and schemed to make it a reality. Once Dan got his vacation approved, they set it up so that it would appear that he would just happen to meet us at the pool. Then she would find ways to spend time with him while using me as a babysitter. Their ultimate plan was to have her spend every night in his room, and judging from the more recent texts, that would start tonight. Worse yet, she agreed to deny me any sex for the whole week. What are you going to tell your husband? He asked in one text. I'll tell him my period is starting, she wrote back. He won't come anywhere near me sexually while I'm on my period. He's going to suspect something, you know, Dan wrote her. He hasn't yet, she said. He'll know when you get pregnant, Dan wrote. Ha, he thinks the boys are his too, she said in response. But they're not. I got a DNA test done about a year and a half ago to prove it. I'll email it to you. Damn, he wrote back. Why do you stay with him then? 'Cause he's a good provider, and he's great with the kids. Better yet, I never have to worry about him getting me pregnant. After Robert was born, I talked him into getting a vasectomy. Do you know who the real fathers are? He asked her. Yeah, an old boyfriend is John's father, and a doctor I used to work for is Robert's. He even did Shane's vasectomy. Damn, I thought. I remember the doctor left the clinic a few years back and became some rich muck at a teaching hospital in town. You're something else. You'd better hope he never finds out. Something tells me he'd kick your butt to the curb in a heartbeat. He's a big teddy bear. Trust me, he won't do anything. I'll just let him know that if he divorces me, I'll destroy him financially and keep him away from the boys. You're cold, he said. Yep, the coldest. Did you give him my sloppy seconds last night like you said? He asked in another exchange dated just this morning. Almost. He was about to, but then he got sick. He hasn't hardly spoken to me at all this morning. Maybe he's figured it out, Dan said. Nah, he's clueless as ever. Probably something he ate. LOL. We still on for tonight? He asked. Oh yeah. I'll be at the pool like we discussed. How long you going to stay? Dan asked in response. I'll have to get back to the room about 8 a.m. or so, she said. So you've got me for the whole night. He wants to take us to the tar pits. Boring. Okay, see you tonight, he said. See you, lover, she responded. It was a good thing Kay wasn't around right then. I've read stories where people say the opposite of love is indifference, not hate. That wasn't true in my case. There was no indifference in me, it was, simply put, a blind, seething hatred. The witch had lied to me all these years and even robbed me of ever having a family of my own. At that moment, I wanted to punish her slowly with my bare hands. I had to know about the DNA test she spoke of, so I opened her mobile email client and did a search. Sure enough, there it was, in a folder marked stuff. It was dated a little more than a year and a half ago. I opened it up and saw the proof of her treachery in black and white. Somehow, she got a sample from me and the boys. The test was clear, the two boys were at best half-siblings with the same mother but different fathers. The test concluded that I could not possibly be the father of either child. Angry beyond words, I forwarded the document to my own email and looked through the other emails she had kept. There were a number of them from Dan and other men, dating back about 8 years, just after Robert's birth. Almost all were quite explicit, and some included pictures and videos, which I also forwarded to my own account. I looked through her purse, which she had placed on the dresser. I found a container of birth control pills with about half of them gone. Why would she need this, considering I had a vasectomy? I asked myself. I found her planner and looked through it. Kay has a habit of writing everything down, and I noticed a number of days with DK written in red. Those were probably the days she hooked up with Dan, I thought. I also found a notation that read stop BC 2 days before we left for vacation. Another notation read know us the same day. It didn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. No doubt she had stopped taking her birth control and cut me off from sex. Why, I wondered. With my vasectomy, I couldn't possibly get her pregnant. Maybe she was saving herself for Dan and wanted to make certain he would get her pregnant. I took pictures of the planner and the birth control pills and put everything back. I looked at her phone, wondering what more I could get from it. Then I had an idea. Some time ago, the company I worked for thought that one of the junior developers might be passing trade secrets to a competitor, so they used an application that monitored all of the activity on his cell phone, from SMS text messages to phone calls and emails. Another app was used to record and transcribe any calls, with the logs saved on the device and archived either locally or to a different server. This was a bit dicey thanks to federal laws regarding the recording of phone calls. As I recalled, the information could be accessed by any device with the right credentials. It turned out the rumor was unfounded. However, the developer was found to be a bit lax in his personal security habits and was given a stern lecture before being transferred to another department. I set up an account to track all the activity on Kay's mobile phone number and, within minutes, was able to access everything using my phone, tablet, or personal computer. I set up an app to also record and transcribe any calls on the phone. I knew this couldn't be used in court, but I figured all's fair in love and war, and in my view, Kay had just declared war. The third thing I did was install a phone finder app so I could keep track of where her phone was at all times. This way, I reasoned, I could keep tabs on her location, assuming she had the phone with her. I also decided to get myself and the boys away from Kay, so I looked up flight information and called the airline reservation desk. I learned there was a flight back to Pittsburgh set to take off just before midnight, so I made the arrangements. The flight would land about 4.5 hours later, however, there was also a 3-hour time difference between the two cities. That would give me time to pack, get to LAX, and get through security. By the time Kay returned, we would be back in our hometown. I made a call to my in-laws, hoping I could speak to them before they went to bed. Fortunately, Kay's parents and I got along well. They considered me the son they never had, and I thought of them as my second mom and dad. Kay's mother, Julie, answered the phone on the second ring. "Hi Mom, sorry for calling so late, but I have a really big favor to ask." "Sure, Shane. Everything okay out there on the West Coast?" "Not really, Mom. I'm bringing the kids back home tonight, and I was wondering if they could stay with you for the week." "I'll explain when I get there." "Well, of course, they can stay here. Is something going on between you and Kay?" "I don't want to get into it on the phone, but I promise to bring you up to speed when I get there. And whatever you do, please don't mention anything to Kay, okay?" "I promise," she said. After I ended the call, I grabbed my things and threw them in the suitcases. That took all of about 5 minutes, given my anger. I went into the boys' room and shook them awake. "Come on, guys, get up. We're leaving. You need to get packed up right now." They looked at me, scared and tired. "What's going on?" John asked. "It's an emergency, we're going home. You guys will spend the rest of the week with Grandma and Grandpa. Now get up, move." "Where's Mom?" Robert asked. "Isn't she coming?" "No, stupid. She's with that guy," Jan said. I looked at my 10-year-old son. Had he seen what I was missing? "How do you know that?" I asked him. "She was texting him all day today, Dad. Didn't you notice?" Frankly, my attention had been on them during most of our trip to Disneyland, but I remembered seeing her on her phone. "Yeah, come on. Get a move on, guys. We're leaving in a few minutes." I helped them get packed up, then wrote a note for Kay, assuming she wouldn't see it until the morning. "Kay, you weren't here when we got up this morning, so I took the kids out for the day. Maybe late. See you later. S." I wondered if she would even notice that I left out any term of endearment, but frankly, at that point, I didn't care. I figured that if Kay stayed true to form, she would probably read the note and head back to Dan without giving the place a second glance. We took our luggage and headed to the front desk, where I settled the account and turned in my key card. I told the night manager that my wife was still in the room, and I didn't know how long she would stay. "I hope you enjoyed your stay," the young woman said. "Yeah, thanks," I replied, walking out front. I saw a van marked Airport Shuttle and spoke to the driver standing next to it. He situated us in the van, loaded our luggage, and we took off. It turned out that I had timed it just right. We got to the airline check-in desk, and my new reservation was confirmed. It took a while to get through security, but we were finally on the aircraft and heading for Pittsburgh. The boys were sound asleep minutes after the plane took off, but I couldn't sleep. I pulled out my tablet and started doing research on Pennsylvania divorce law. Pennsylvania is a no-fault state, however, state law allows for divorces based on adultery or other reasons. Those were usually more expensive, the sites I saw stated, and could take longer to resolve. From what I could tell, it would be pretty much a given that I would have to pay child support. Part of me really didn't mind, though, since I loved the boys I had raised, even though I wasn't their biological father. Our assets would be split evenly, but it looked like I could avoid alimony given the evidence of her long-term adultery. It also looked like Kay would end up with physical custody of the boys, and I would end up being a weekend dad to children I never fathered. Chances are she would also end up with the house, but I thought maybe I could get her to buy out my half of the mortgage. I knew what she made and figured that if she budgeted herself carefully, she could get by, although it wouldn't be easy. The bottom line was that I would need a really good lawyer to handle this, not just some paralegal filling blanks on pre-printed forms. I would ask Cliff, my father-in-law, who happened to be a corporate lawyer, if he could recommend someone. I fired up the Watcher app to see what was going on with Kay's phone. There wasn't anything new, but I saw the app had finished archiving the entire contents of her phone, text messages, pictures, videos, emails, call logs, the works. I thought about looking through it all some more, but figured I had endured enough punishment for a 24-hour period. I spent some time thinking about what I could do to get back at the two cheaters. There was no way I was going to let this all go unpunished. I remember Dan saying he and his wife lived in Zanesville, so I did a search and found an address and phone number for Daniel and Alicia King. I figured that since she knew what they had planned, it wouldn't do any good to confront her. Exhausted, I turned off the tablet and sat back, hoping to catch a few winks of sleep before the plane landed. I awoke just as the plane began its descent into Pittsburgh. We deplaned with the rest of the passengers, collected our bags, and made our way to the car. I called Cliff and Julie to let them know we were back and on our way over. I pulled into their driveway and carried the boys' things to the door. Julie and Cliff met us, gave the boys a big hug, and ushered me inside. I set the boys' luggage down, and Julie hugged me. "What's going on, son?" she asked. "I thought everything was okay between you and Kay." "I did too, but I learned it was all a lie." "What do you mean?" Cliff asked. I pulled out my tablet and showed them the DNA test document from Kay's email and her texts with Dan. "Oh my God, how could she be so stupid?" "I'm sorry, Shane. I thought she outgrew all this nonsense after she married you." "What do you mean?" I asked. Kay was a bit of a wild child in her younger years. It started during high school and only got worse when she went to college. She was one of those girls you'd see on stage at spring break, taking her clothes off. She was always with one boy or another. She got engaged for a while, but they broke it off. She told us they just drifted apart. "She never told me anything about that," I said. "Yeah, that was while she was in college." "What was that boy's name?" she asked, turning to Cliff. "Oh yeah, Mike something." "Mike?" Shocking, they went to high school together. I think I still have that picture of them going to prom. She pulled a photo album off the shelf and opened it, flipping through several pages. "Here it is," she said, showing me the photo. I looked at the picture of a much younger Kay and her high school prom date and noticed something right off the bat. Mike, her date, looked very much like John. I showed the photo to Julie. "Is it just me, or does he bear a striking resemblance to John?" I asked. Julie and Cliff both looked at the picture. "I think you're right, they do look an awful lot alike, don't they, Cliff?" she asked, looking at her husband. He nodded his head. "Sure does," Cliff said. He looked at me. "Do you think he could be John's biological father?" "Looks like it to me, but it'll take a DNA test to prove it." "Do you know if this guy is still in town?" "Yes, his family has owned a deli here for years, makes the best pastrami. I think he still works there." She wrote something on a piece of paper and handed it to me. It was the name and general location of the deli. "I'll have to go see this guy," I thought to myself. I looked at Cliff. "Can you recommend a good divorce lawyer?" I asked. "I can." "You sure that's what you want to do?" "Absolutely. Kay has lied to me for the last 13 years, and now she's denied me my own children. Even now, she's shacking up with some salesman in his hotel room in California. I understand, son. Look, I'm disgusted by what she's done. You've been very good to her, and I think of you as my own son, but she is my daughter, and I still love her. Do what you need to do, but promise me one thing." "What's that?" I asked. "Promise me you won't physically hurt her," he said. I nodded my head. I could see his point. "I promise," I said. "Thanks. Also, we'd like it if you could come by for dinner tonight with us and the kids. I'd like for us to sit down and discuss this in detail." "I'll be here." He pulled out his wallet and handed me a business card. "Maren Hawkins," it read, with an address and phone number. "She's the best in the business from what I hear. I worked with her a few years back. She absolutely hates cheaters. I suggest you call her office bright and early Monday." "Thanks. I'll see you this evening, and please don't let Kay know we're here." "Mum's the word," Julie said. We said our goodbyes, and I hugged the boys, promising to be back that evening. I left and headed to the place I used to call home. It seemed so dark, so empty without Kay and the boys. Everywhere I looked made me think of happier times. Tears began to form in my eyes, knowing those happy times were gone for good, tainted by her lies and deceit. I wiped the tears away and headed upstairs to the master bedroom, vowing never to cry over Kay again. Looking at myself in the bathroom mirror, I realized that I hadn't had a decent night's sleep in nearly 2 full days. "God," I said to myself, "I look awful." I brushed my teeth and crawled under the covers. I was asleep almost the second my head hit the pillow. Meanwhile, Kay was in the hotel. I walked into our hotel suite right at 8 o'clock Sunday morning, hoping to see my husband and the boys. I didn't know what to expect, not after the way Shane treated me the day before, and I was frankly a bit scared. Fortunately, I showered before I left Dan's room this morning. The last thing I needed was for Shane to smell my lover all over me. I opened the door, expecting to be hit with the noise of 3 men getting ready for the day, or rather, 1 man and 2 precocious boys. Instead, it was deathly quiet. I wondered what was going on and went into the room Shane and I shared. He wasn't there, but I did see a note on top of the dresser. Kay, you weren't here when we got up this morning, so I took the kids out for the day. Might be late. See you later. S. Short, sweet, and to the point, just like my husband, I thought. I noticed it didn't include the usual endearments he typically left, not even a single love you or anything else. Maybe he's still a bit burned up about Friday night. Oh well, I thought. I figured there was no sense in trying to call or text. Judging from his mood yesterday, it probably wouldn't do me any good. And besides, I said to myself, I really wasn't all that interested in seeing a bunch of tar pits anyway. I saw my phone on the dresser where I left it. Picking it up and unlocking it, I noticed the Messenger app was open. Strange, I thought. I always close my apps out when I'm done, maybe not, though. I called Dan's cell number. Hey, lover, I said when he answered. Bonehead took the boys early this morning, and he says they may be late getting back tonight, so I'm all yours for today and tonight if you want. He's gone already? Dan asked. Yep, guess he got tired of waiting for me to show up, so he took off. His loss. Meet you downstairs for breakfast? Then maybe go from there to the pool and back here for more fun? You got it, lover. I couldn't wait. I was still tingling from the marathon sex session we had last night. After that, there was no way Shane could ever satisfy me again, I thought. Too bad he's such a stick in the mud. We could have had a lot of fun together, the three of us. It's been, nearly 15 years since my last threesome? His loss, Dan's gain, I said to myself. I grabbed a few things out of the dresser and left. Meanwhile, Shane was at his house. The clock read 1:30 p.m. when I finally opened my eyes. I must have been more tired than I thought. I got up, rubbed the sleep out of my eyes, and headed for the bathroom. It was a good thing today was Sunday. There wasn't much I could do about an attorney today, but I did have one very important thing on my agenda. I looked at my phone and noticed Kay hadn't sent any texts nor called to see where we were. Figures. I wondered if she saw the note I left and decided to spend her day with Dickwad. After I showered and dressed, I fired up my tablet and checked for activity on her phone. Sure enough, there was a new call, which meant she had to have been in the hotel room and read the note I left. According to the log, it was to another cell phone with a 740 area code. Looking it up on the internet, I learned it was one of two area codes for Zanesville, the town where Dan lived with his wife and two girls. I listened to the audio of the call and read the transcript provided by the app one installed and figured she would be spending the day and the night with Dan. Looking at her tracker data, I saw that the phone, and presumably she, were still at the hotel. I checked a map, got the location of the deli where Mike Schock worked, and headed out. I found the place easily enough, parked, and went inside. A man cutting meat on a counter behind the main display turned around as I walked in. He had put on more than a couple of pounds since his high school days, and his blonde hair was thinning, but I knew it was him, Mike Schock. It also helped that he wore a name tag that read Mike. What can I do for you, buddy? He asked, smiling. Are you Mike Schock? I asked. Depends on who you are, he said, still smiling. If you're a bill collector or from the IRS, no. I laughed. At least he has a good sense of humor, I thought. I'm not a bill collector, and I don't work for the IRS, I said. His smile broadened, and he offered a hand after taking off his gloves. Then I'm your man. And who might you be? Shane McKnight. Good to meet you. Good to meet you. What can I do for you? Well, 3 things, actually. Do you know a Kay Williams? He nodded his head. I did, back in high school and college. Heard she got married. Yeah, she married me about 13 years ago. I see, he said, the smile fading from his face. I understand you and her were engaged once, I said. He nodded his head. Yeah, that was a long time ago, though. Both of us were in college at the time. If you don't mind my asking, what happened? I asked. Well, I caught her with another man. I had hoped she would keep her promise to be faithful, but I guess she couldn't, so I broke it off with her. You took her to your high school prom, right? I asked. Yeah, a long time ago. Look, you didn't know her back then. She was pretty wild. I guess you could say she was the class bike, pretty much rode everyone she could get her hands on. Got even wilder in college. I thought she might settle down as she got older, but I guess she didn't. You remember seeing her about 11 years ago or thereabouts? I asked. His face turned red. Yeah, he said quietly. She came here to the deli about closing time and said she wanted to talk to me. I thought maybe she was looking to get back with me, but I saw her wedding rings and thought better of it. She told me she wanted to make up for what she did to me in college. Said she wanted me to get her pregnant. I asked her about her husband. I guess that would have been you, and she told me you got off on her having sex with other guys. Said it was a game you two played. Not exactly, I said. Figures, he said in response. Doesn't sit too well with that ring, does it? I asked, looking at the wedding ring you wore. He looked at it for a moment before answering. I wasn't married at the time. Met my wife about 6 months after that day. You ever hear back from Kay? I asked. Yeah, she came in and told me she had a boy, named him Jim or something. John, I said. I pulled out my phone and showed him a picture of JN. Remarkable resemblance, don't you think? Yeah. Good-looking boy. I guess you want to take a swing at me now, right? I shook my head. It's a bit late for that, but there are some things you can do for me. What's that? He asked. Would you be willing to testify to that in court? Tell the judge what you just told me? Maybe swear out a statement? I guess I could do that. After all, it sounds like she played us both. She did. Also, would you be willing to have your DNA checked to verify that you're John's biological father? Are you planning on coming after me for support or something? He asked nervously. I shook my head. I don't know what the court will order. My name's on the birth certificate, and I've been raising him for the last 10 years. I don't know what Kay or her lawyer will do, though. He thought for a minute before answering. All right, I'll do it. What do I have to do? I pulled out a plastic bag with a Q-tip. Just let me get some saliva from inside your cheek. I'll take it from there. He opened his mouth, and I swiped the Q-tip inside. I put the Q-tip back in the bag, marked it, and put it in my pocket. There's just one more thing, I said. What? He asked. I'd like a pound of your pastrami, please. I'll pay for that. His face broke into a huge grin. I see you're a man of good taste. You know, we make the best pastrami in the state. So I've heard, I said. He handed me a small piece to sample. It was, without question, the best pastrami I had ever tasted. That is good, I said. If you want, I'll throw in a sandwich, no extra charge. Sounds good, Mike. Please do, I haven't had lunch yet. He weighed out a pound of meat, placed it in a bag, and, grabbing more meat, put together a sandwich, wrapping it up in paper. After he finished, I thanked him and paid for the pastrami. You seem like a real stand-up guy, Mike said. Shane, I'm really sorry about everything, and I hope it all works out for you. Thanks, Mike, and thank you for your honesty. See you around. See you, he said as I walked out. I drove home, taking a few bites of the sandwich as I went. I had one more major item on my agenda for the day. I put the packaged meat in the refrigerator and finished the sandwich Mike made for me. Pulling out my tablet, I checked to see if there was any new activity on Kay's phone since this morning. There wasn't. It seemed she didn't even care to know if the boys and I were all right. I decided to go through her emails and text some more to see what else I could find. I started at the beginning of her emails and found several exchanges between her and Dr. Winstead, the doctor who performed my vasectomy. He made it clear to her that he did not want to know anything about the child he had sired and asked if she had approached me about having a vasectomy as he suggested. Yes, I did, she told him in her reply. And he's open to it. I told him I had a hard time with Robert, which I did, and he'll do anything to make me feel better. Good, he responded. I'll take care of it myself. Trust me, he'll never be able to have children when I'm done. Just curious, why don't you want to have kids with your husband? Seriously? Have you looked at him? You think I want to have children with him? No way. I couldn't believe what I was reading. My so-called loving wife and this doctor conspired to render me sterile, all the while making me believe I was doing it for her. The thought that she really didn't want children with me cut me to the core. Why did she even marry me if she felt that way? I looked through more of her emails and came across some pictures and videos showing her having sex with other men. I copied all this to a thumb drive, as I would use it in my divorce. I continued going through her emails and found that she had trysts with at least 5 other men after Dr. Winstead left the clinic. Judging from the dates on the emails, it appeared that a lot of her affairs took place while I was gone. Granted, I didn't travel much for my work, but there were a few times I had to travel to either supervise software updates on old avionics gear or observe test flights with the new gear we developed. At most, I only had to travel maybe 3 or 4 times a year. Then she met Dan, and things changed radically. It seemed that Dan and his wife were into the swinging scene and wanted to get Kay and me involved as well. Kay told them I would never go along with it, so they decided to keep the affair between the 3 of them. I sat back, wondering how I could not have seen it before. Was I really so blinded by my love for her that I simply overlooked it? How much longer would this treachery have gone on if I hadn't found out? Worse yet, how would I explain this to the boys? I always told them that honesty was always best, even if it hurt. I knew that someday I would have to let them know. Damn her, I thought. Damn her to hell. I looked at my watch and realized I would have to leave soon to have dinner with the boys and my in-laws. I took another shower, feeling dirty after looking at Kay's emails and texts. Once there, I rang the doorbell, and Cliff answered. He invited me in, and the boys were all over me. God, I love those boys, I thought. Too bad I'm not their biological father. We all sat down and had a nice meal, then retired to the family room. Dad, John said, getting my attention. Are you and Mom getting divorced? I nodded my head. I'm afraid so, son. Is it something I did? He asked, tears in his eyes. I held him close. No, son, it's nothing you did. You two are the best sons a man could ever want. Then why don't you love Mom anymore? It's hard to explain, son. Sometimes moms and dads go through things that can't be fixed. This is one of those times. But remember that I love you and always will, and I'll always be there for you, okay? I spent some time hugging both boys and reassuring them, but they knew things would never be the same in our family again. Listen, why don't you guys go on back upstairs and get ready for bed? I need to talk with Grandma and Grandpa for a while. Okay, they said as they left the room. I waited until they were gone and pulled out my tablet. I spent the next hour filling Cliff and Julie in on what I knew so far. I showed them all the text messages and emails, and even showed them the pictures and videos. They were clearly disgusted with the way their daughter had been acting but watched the videos anyway. It seems she's been doing this to me our whole marriage, I told them. That explains what happened last summer, Julie said. What do you mean? I asked. Last summer, when you were at Edwards for a week, Kay brought the boys over and asked if they could stay the night. She told me she was going to a birthday party for a girl at her office and thought she might be late. We didn't see her until Sunday afternoon. I remembered that trip. I had to supervise a test of some new software and ended up being gone a whole week. I looked through my tablet and found emails from that time between Kay, Dan, and Alicia. It appeared she had spent the weekend with them, engaging in a 2-day-long sex fest. I showed the emails to Cliff and Julie. I'm so sorry, son, Cliff finally said. You deserve a lot better than this. You've been a wonderful husband and father. Thanks, Dad. I'm sorry to hit you guys with all this, but as you can see, there's no way I can stay with Kay. I hope you don't mind, but I took the liberty of calling Marin. She told me that if you could be at her office at 7:30 in the morning, she'll see you right away. Thanks, I'll be there. Make sure you take all of this along with your financials. If anyone can get you through this in one piece, it's her. Just don't do anything stupid. I won't, I promise, I said. What are you going to do about the biodads? He asked. I shook my head. I don't know. I met Mike earlier today. He seems like a nice enough guy, and he was honest enough to tell me the whole story. I think he got played just like I did. I don't know what I'm going to do about Dr. Winstead, though. Yeah, I've met him at the country club a few times, Cliff said. He's a cocky son of a witch. I'd love to see you take him down a notch or two. I laughed at that. I'd like that too. I looked at my watch and realized I still had a lot to do before I went to bed. I'd better get going, I told them. If you don't mind, I'd like to tell the boys good night. Good idea, Julie said. I left the room and went upstairs. The boys were in bed but not asleep yet. I hugged them, told them I loved them, and promised I would see them soon. I bid Cliff and Julie goodnight and headed home, where I began pulling up all of our financial information. I printed off everything there was and put it in a folder along with the most damning emails. I also copied the photos and videos to a thumb drive. I checked one last time to see if there was any activity on her cell, and seeing none, I decided to call it a night. I couldn't believe that she wouldn't even bother to text me to see if the boys were all right. The next day, Monday, I got up early, noticed that Kay still had not bothered to text or call, showered, shaved, dressed, and left to see Marin. I met her at the door to her office right at 7:30. "Mr. McKnight, I presume," she said as she opened the door to her office. "Please, call me Shane." "You must be Miss Hawkins." "Actually, it's Mrs. Hawkins, but you can call me Marin." "I see you got your father-in-law's message." "I did, and he tells me you're the best in your business." "I am. My receptionist won't be in for another half hour, so why don't we get us a cup of coffee and get started?" "Sounds good to me," I said. She made us each a cup of coffee from a Keurig device in the reception area and escorted me into her office. "Mr. Williams, your father-in-law tells me you're looking to get a divorce." "Is that right?" she asked. "Yes, it is." "Okay, tell me what's going on." I brought her up to date on the whole sordid affair, leaving nothing out. I showed her the emails, the text messages, the DNA form, and handed her the flash drive with pictures and video. "And you say you've heard nothing from her since you left California Saturday night?" she asked. "Nothing. Not a text message, phone call, nothing." "Well, that won't look too good in the eyes of the court." "You say you've identified the biological fathers of both boys?" "I have," I said, telling her about my encounter with Mike. "I see. Well, you should know that divorce isn't about justice, I'm sorry to say. It's usually about money. In most cases, the mother almost always gets custody, and the father always pays child support along with spousal support. All of your assets are normally split in half, and the custodial parent typically ends up with the house. Pennsylvania is a no-fault state, however, the law does allow for divorce on the grounds of adultery. I'm assuming that's what you're looking for?" "It is," I said. "We'll have to prove that to a judge, and from what you've shown me, I think we have a slam-dunk case," she said. "Based on that, we can ask that no spousal support be granted. However, you'll still have to pay some child support. That's based entirely on a formula taking in a number of factors." "Even though I'm not the biological father?" I asked. "You've been raising the children as yours for a decade, but that doesn't mean we can't do anything. You say the father of the youngest is Dr. Robert Winstead?" "Yes," I said. Suddenly it hit me, my youngest boy is named Robert. The witch named him after his real father. "You say he's the one who performed your vasectomy after encouraging your wife to have you get one?" Marin said. "Yes." "Is that important?" "It could be," she said thoughtfully. "Let me work with that a bit. In the meantime, I'll put together a petition that grants her physical custody of the boys, with you having shared custody. Chances are that's what the courts will order anyway. I'll also ask for the basic minimum on child support and no spousal support. I'll give her the option to buy out your half of the house. There's also the possibility that the court may order you to undergo counseling. Is that something you would be interested in?" "No. She's lied to me from the beginning and robbed me of ever being able to have a family. There's nothing that will ever make me reconcile with her." "I understand. However, depending on the judge, you may be ordered to go through counseling anyway. I'm just letting you know it's a possibility." I nodded in understanding. "What about DNA testing?" I asked. "We already have the test results your wife got, but I can see where additional testing to prove paternity could come in handy." "Sure, go ahead with that if you want." We talked for a while longer, with her giving me a list of things to help protect myself financially. After taking all her notes, she stopped and looked at me. "When would you like her served?" she asked. "As soon as possible," I said. "You say she has the hotel suite in California booked through Friday?" she asked. "Yes, but she could come back anytime. As far as I know, she still doesn't know that I've left." "I see. Okay, we'll plan to serve her when she gets to the airport. If you hear that she's coming back early, call me on my cell. If I don't answer, it'll be because I'm in court, so just leave a message. In the meantime, don't do anything stupid. Let me take care of this. I know this is hard on you, but you need to be strong for your 2 boys. Thanks. Is there anything else we need to discuss? Not right now, but please get in touch with me if you hear from her. I will. So, how much do I owe you? I blanched after she told me, but I knew it was necessary. I wrote out the check and handed it to her. We said our goodbyes, and I headed out the door, feeling somewhat better about the situation. I still hated Kay, but at least I was doing something about it. On the way home, I stopped at the bank and made the changes to our account that Marin advised. I took out half of everything and opened a new account in my name only, then paid off and closed the joint credit cards. I ordered one just for myself. However, I also knew that Kay had her own card in her own name, which wasn't tied to the joint account, even though I paid for it out of our joint checking account. By the time I got home, it was nearly 11 a.m., 8 a.m. California time, and I figured that if Kay was going to call, she would do it soon. Meanwhile, Kay was still at the hotel. It was right at 8 a.m. Monday morning when I entered our hotel suite. Even though I had taken a shower in Dan's room, I could only hope that Shane wouldn't put his hand under my shorts. He would instantly know what I had been doing. I paused before entering the room, not knowing what I would find. I hadn't heard from him at all yesterday and was a bit concerned about the boys. I knew they were safe with Shane, but it would have been nice to hear something. I put the card key in the slot and opened the door. When I heard the latch release, the place seemed eerily quiet when I entered, almost too quiet. Where were they? I didn't see them in the restaurant. Had they left for the day already? I called out, but no one answered. I walked into the boys' room and saw both beds were made up. I didn't see the usual clutter of toys or clothes and wondered what was going on. When I opened the closet, I got the shock of my life. All their clothes were gone. I opened their dresser drawers, and everything was gone as well. Panicked, I ran into our room and opened the closet door. All of Shane's things were gone as well. I looked at the dresser and saw the note he left Saturday night had been moved. Opening his dresser drawers, I saw everything was gone. Oh my God, I thought. He knows. I pulled out my cell and called. Hello? Shane said when he answered. Sweetie, it's me. Where are you? Are the boys all right? What's going on? As if you really care, he said. I could hear the anger in his voice. Of course I care. I love you and I miss you. Huh, he exclaimed. Is that why you waited 36 hours to contact me? Too busy screwing around to notice that the boys and I were gone? What are you talking about? I knew the boys would be safe with you and I know how much you hate using your cell, I said. You figured I'd be gone so you decided to spend the day and the night with your sex buddy. Don't lie to me again. I know everything. What do you mean, everything? I asked, growing nervous. How much does he really know? I mean everything. I found your DNA test results and I know the boys aren't mine. I know who their real fathers are, and I know how you plotted to keep me from ever having my children. You've lied to me our whole marriage. Even this vacation was just an excuse to screw Dan for the whole week. Shane, it's not what you think, I said, trying to throw him off balance. It didn't work. Don't give me that. You no good cheating 304. You deliberately plotted and schemed to deny me a family. You've been screwing around on me our whole marriage. Well, guess what? It ends now. We're finished. We're through. I've already seen an attorney about a divorce. Divorce? No, please, Shane, I don't want a divorce. I don't give a damn what you want anymore, he said. Shane, please let me come home and we can talk this out like adults. I understand you're angry right now, but we can work this out. There's nothing to work out. The room is paid through Friday, so you might as well stay there. You'll be served papers when you get back. By the way, you should know that I've canceled your joint credit card and your debit card. You still have your own personal card, though. Shane, please, I began, but he had already ended the call. I stood there looking at the phone, debating whether I should call back. I figured it wouldn't do any good, so I decided not to call. The more I thought about what he had said, though, the angrier I became. Yes, I cheated on Shane over the years, a lot. I had always been a bit wild and thought things would change once I was married. I stayed faithful to Shane for the first 2 years of our marriage, but old desires started coming back. I missed the quick hookups and the occasional threesome, and the thrill of illicit sex with multiple partners. About that time, we discussed starting a family, and I made a unilateral decision that changed everything, at least for me. I decided to let Mike, my former fiancé, get me pregnant. I justified it to Mike by telling him I owed it to him. Yes, I lied a bit when he asked me about my husband, but the truth is I never really wanted Shane's children. It's not that he's ugly or anything, he's no Quasimodo, but he's certainly no Brad Pitt, if you know what I mean. It wasn't easy for me at first, and I did everything I could to keep Shane from finding out. I usually waited until he was gone on one of his trips to have my trysts, so I would have time to enjoy myself and clean up afterward. It was hard since he was only gone a few times a year. After John was born, I took on a few more lovers, always being careful to keep Shane from finding out. I started using some of the comp time I had built up to spend afternoons with various men. Some of my lovers took pictures and videos, sending them to me as keepsakes. A couple of years after Mike, I started an affair with Dr. Winstead, one of my superiors at work. He refused to wear a condom, and I ended up pregnant with Robert. Yes, I named the boy after his real father, even though he didn't want anything to do with his offspring. I took a chance that Shane wouldn't find out, and until now, my secret was safe. Dr. Winstead told me I should have Shane get a vasectomy after Robert was born. It was a wicked idea, I thought, so I suggested it to my clueless husband. He bought my lies and agreed to have the vasectomy, and I made sure Dr. Winstead did the procedure. After Robert was born, I hooked up with several men again, making sure to be as discreet as possible. I never denied Shane anything and promised myself I wouldn't disrespect him by giving him sloppy seconds, as long as he stayed in the dark. I thought everything would be fine. Somewhere along the way, I met Mac. That's not his real name, of course, but it's what everyone calls him. We hooked up a few times before he made a proposition that promised to be very lucrative. Everything we did was all cash, and so far, I had managed to build up quite a nice nest egg. I decided to use it as my fallback if Shane ever decided to dump me. Yes, some of what I did for Mac stretched the legal limit, but he assured me everything would be fine if I played it cool. Around the same time I met Mac, I decided to verify that neither of the boys was fathered by Shane, so I had a DNA test done. I was happy with the result and decided to keep the document for future use. I knew that a time would come when I would have to tell my husband the truth. I knew he would be devastated, but I really didn't care. After all, what could he do? Put the kids back in my womb? I know there are some who would consider me evil for denying Shane children, but I figured it was my right to decide who the sperm donors of my offspring would be. As far as I was concerned, Shane's reaction to what he had learned was way over the top. We had gotten through a lot over the years, and I saw no reason why this should be any different. In my mind, I had thought it might be fun to have Shane share in my sexual exploits, perhaps as the willing cuck who would enjoy watching me have sex. In my wildest dreams, I never thought he would actually go through with a divorce. He always ended up giving in to me in the past. Until Friday night, I had never seen him get angry or truly upset about much of anything. But the more I thought about him calling me a 304, the angrier I became. Yes, I am a 304, but I asked myself, how dare he call me one? I'll show him. I thought to myself, he thinks I'm a 304. I'll show him just how much of one I can be. A plan began to form in my mind. What the hell, I thought. Then I had another thought. Shane said he knew everything, and that really concerned me. If he really knew everything as he said, I could end up in jail. I pulled up my contact list and made another call. McGregor, a man's voice said. Mac, it's me, Kay. Hey, Kay. How's California? Getting a good tan? Yeah, it's fun. We have a problem. Shane knows. He said he knows everything, Mac replied. Meanwhile, Shane was at home. I had just ended Kay's call, having decided that I couldn't take any more of her cliches. I waited a few minutes and checked to verify that the app one had installed on her phone Saturday night had uploaded the audio file along with the call transcript. I noticed that she was in the middle of another call to a number in the local Pittsburgh area. I didn't recognize the number and looked in her contacts. Sure enough, there it was, listed under someone named Mac. I waited until the call was finished and gave the app time to copy the audio file and transcript to the cloud. About a half hour later, I saw they were both available. I pulled up the transcript and printed it out so I could read it while listening to the call. Sitting back down with the transcript in hand, I pulled up the audio file and hit play. McGregor, a man's voice said. Mac, it's me, Kay. Hey, Kay. How's California? Getting a good tan? Yeah, it's fun. We have a problem. Shane knows. He said he knows everything. We talked about this. You know what has to be done. Are you sure? McGregor asked. Absolutely, and it has to be done Thursday night. Why Thursday? He asked her. 2 reasons. First off, I'm going to send him something late tonight. He probably won't see it until tomorrow. He'll be so upset he probably won't even want to defend himself. Secondly, I'll be here until Friday, and if I know him, he'll probably have me served with divorce papers. Divorce? McGregor asked. Yeah, he found out about me and said he's having divorce papers drawn up. What are you going to do? That'll have him so upset, she said. He thinks I'm a 304. So I'm going to show him just how bad I really am. McGregor laughed at that. Well, you are one, aren't you? He asked her. She chuckled. Yeah, but he has no idea just how much of a naughty girl I can be. So it has to be done Thursday night, and it has to look like a home invasion. We've had to deal with quite a few of those recently, so it's doable. Was this guy a police officer? I asked myself. Tell me, does he have a gun in the house? No, he's been wanting to get one, but I've never allowed it. Good. What about the Rugrats? He asked her. I really don't want them hurt, but there can't be any witnesses, understand? Yeah, he said. I understand. What's in it for me? Shane has $1 million life insurance policy, and his employer has a $500,000 policy on him as well. I'll give you $100,000 out of that. You're asking for an awful lot. Make it $250,000 and we have a deal. Okay, she said after a few moments. So let me get this straight. You want me to take out your husband and possibly your 2 boys for $250,000. You want it done this Thursday night, and you want it to look like a home invasion? That's right, and I want you to handle it yourself. I know you've done this before, and I don't want anyone else screwing it up. There's too much at stake. I understand. You do realize I'm taking quite a risk here. We both are, she said. All right, but I want some of that hot sex of yours when you get back. She chuckled. Of course. I'll even let you have me in my own bed. We can celebrate D-Day together. D-Day? He asked. Yeah, Death to Shane Day. They laughed at that. I've got to get going. I won't call until I get back. Don't worry. I'll act like the distraught widow, and no one will ever know the truth. Okay. I'll text you when it's done. I can't wait. Talk to you later. Bye, he said, ending the call. I sat there stunned, not believing what I had just heard. My so-called loving wife had just promised to pay some a-hole $250,000 to have me and possibly the boys murdered this Thursday night. What the hell is she involved with? I asked myself. And who is this McGregor character? Is he a policeman? And what are they doing that's so bad I and the boys would have to be murdered? I sent the audio file and the transcript to Marin's email address and called her. When I verified the email had been sent, she answered on the second ring. Marin Hawkins, she said when she answered. Marin, this is Shane McKnight. I just sent you a couple of files. I intercepted a call between Kay and some guy named McGregor, and they just plotted to have me and the boys murdered this Thursday. What? She asked, shocked. Are you sure about that? I'm absolutely certain of it. I sent you an audio file and a transcript. How did you get audio and a transcript? Never mind. You can explain it later. I just wrapped up a case and I'm on my way to the office. I want you to come by right now. I'll clear my calendar and call the DA's office and my private investigator on my way, she said, ending the call. I grabbed my tablet and my laptop, along with the printout of the transcript just in case, and headed out. When I got to Marin's office, I noticed 2 men were with her, looking at the transcript. Marin waved me inside and then shut the door. She introduced them to me. Bill Rollins was her private investigator, and the other man was Ryan Jacobs, an assistant district attorney. Can you tell me how you got this? Ryan asked. I explained the apps I had put on Kay's phone. One archived her entire device, including emails, text messages, videos, and photos, while the other recorded her calls and saved them to the cloud as audio files. It also transcribed her calls, saving the text files to a remote location. "I'm not sure we can use this as evidence in court, given the way you got it," he told me. "Look, Mr. Jacobs, the phones and the service are in my name, and I pay the bills. This kind of tech is exactly why I refuse to use my phone for anything other than making calls. Are you willing to swear out an affidavit to that effect?" he asked. "Absolutely. I'll even give you access to whatever I have so you can go through it yourself. I'll need to talk to my boss about this first. Do you have any idea who this McGregor guy is?" I shook my head. "Not directly. I know Kay had an affair with him a couple of years ago. According to her emails, he even sent her some pictures and videos." "Show me," he said. I pulled up my laptop and, using the Wi-Fi in Marin's office, logged into the cloud account where Kay's phone had been archived. I went into her stuff folder and located the email sent from Mac at xxxxxx.com. One of the emails she kept included a fairly long video showing her having sex with this guy. We watched until we came upon a frame that clearly showed his face. "Damn," Bill said. "I know that guy." "Who is he?" I asked. "That's Alfred McGregor. He's one of Pittsburgh's finest, a captain in the police department." "Are you certain of that?" Ryan asked. "Absolutely," Bill said. Ryan looked at the frame closer for a few seconds. "I think you're right." "Can you print this out?" he asked Marin. She nodded. "Give me a second to hook this laptop up to my desk printer," she said, grabbing a USB cable. Soon we had a color photo of McGregor having sex with Kay. Ryan looked at me before speaking again. "Can you get me access to all this information?" he asked. "I can. Do you have a laptop available?" He nodded, then opened his laptop bag and pulled out his computer. He fired it up and connected to Marin's Wi-Fi. In no time, I had him set up to view everything. "I think it would be best if we put Mr. McKnight in protective custody until we can get this all sorted out," he told Marin. She shook her head and rejected his offer. "No way. First of all, he has 2 young boys to take care of. Second, if you put my client in protective custody, you'll be signing his death warrant. There's no way I'm going to let you put him in a position where this McGregor guy can get hold of him." "I have a couple of guys I can assign to protect him," Bill said. Marin nodded. "Do it," she said. Ryan looked back at me before speaking again. "Do you have any idea why they would want you murdered?" he asked. I pulled up my laptop and showed them emails I had found between Kay and Alfred. "I don't know what any of this means, but I found it while searching through her emails." They looked through the emails I brought up, and as I watched, Ryan's eyes got wide. "Holy crap," he said. "What?" Marin asked. "Our office has been working with the DA on a recent uptick in prescription drugs showing up on the black market, OxyContin, opioids, that sort of thing. They've been trying to find the source of the drugs, but so far they've had no luck," he said. He looked at me. "Where does your wife work?" he asked. I told him about her job at the clinic. "Do you think my wife is the source of these drugs?" I asked. "That's what these emails suggest. It also appears McGregor is involved as well. If your wife thinks you know about all this, she would certainly be inclined to want you out of the way." He turned back to Marin. "Are you sure you don't want your client in protective custody so McGregor can't get to him easier?" "Hell no. What I want is McGregor behind bars immediately. It's not that simple. We need to go through channels, bring in internal affairs, conduct an investigation. We're talking about a police captain here, not some rookie beat cop. It'll take time." "We don't have time for your political channels," Marin said angrily. "By the time you go through normal procedures, I'll be collecting Social Security and my client will be dead. We know that McGregor plans to murder him and his 2 children on Thursday. That gives us less than 3 days. What do you want me to do?" Ryan asked. "Call your boss right now," she said. "He's probably at lunch right now," Ryan said. "I know he is. He's probably getting back in his car right about now. Call him and put him on speakerphone," Marin instructed. Ryan nodded and pulled out his phone. He put it on speaker and set it on Marin's desk. "Giles," a man said when he answered the phone. "Boss, this is Ryan Jacobs," Ryan said. "I'm with Marin Hawkins and a client of hers, and it seems we have a problem." "Oh?" Giles asked. What kind of problem? Can it wait until I get back in the office? I just finished lunch. Ryan looked at Marin, who looked back with a satisfied grin on her face. Not really. We have evidence that one of our esteemed police captains may be involved in a murder-for-hire scheme and a plot to distribute stolen drugs. Who might this police captain be? Giles asked. It's McGregor, Marin said. Giles said, no way. He's one of our most highly decorated officers. I can't believe he'd be involved in something like that. We have pretty compelling evidence, boss, Ryan said. Like what? Giles asked. A telephone call, along with a lot of incriminating emails, Ryan replied. Giles said, we don't have time for political Giles. According to what we have, the hit is supposed to take place Thursday night, and there are children involved. You already said that, Giles responded. What are you going to do about it? All right, Ryan. Let Jenkins handle your cases for a couple of days. I want you to work exclusively on this and bring me a solid case in 48 hours. Can you do that? I can, Ryan said. Keep it to yourself in the meantime. I'll put a bug in the chief's ear, and we'll give AA a heads up. If there's anything to this, we'll get him off the street pronto. Will that work for you, counselor? For now, Marin said. But so help me, Giles, if anything happens to my client or his children, I'll make a stink you won't believe, and you can kiss ever getting re-elected to anything goodbye. Don't worry, Marin. I'll do my job. I hope so, Giles. I truly hope so, Marin replied. Ryan ended the call and collected his gear. I'd better get started on this right now. We'll definitely need to swear out an arrest warrant for your wife. You say she's due back on Friday? I nodded. Okay. I'll see about transmitting this to California so the locals there can pick her up. Can I get your number in case I need more information from you? He asked. I nodded and wrote down my number and home address on a slip of paper, handing it to him. He thanked me and put the note in his pocket. One last thing, we'll need to search your home. I'll get the search warrant and call you when we're ready to come over. I understand, I said. He nodded, shook my hand, and left. I guess this changes things regarding your divorce, Marin said after Ryan left. You think? I asked sarcastically. Sorry, I said, seeing her reaction. All this has really pissed me off. It's not your fault, Marin said. That's okay, Shane. I'd be a bit pissed off if I were in your shoes as well. So, I take it you want custody in the house? Yes. I doubt she'll be able to make support from jail. I doubt it myself. We'll work something out. Just go take care of your kids, okay? I nodded. I will. Bill came back into the room and addressed me. Do you have a security system in your house? He asked. I nodded. Yes, I do. All right. What about security bars on your windows? No, I've never cared for them. I understand, but I think that under the circumstances, you should have them, along with security doors. I have a contractor who can install them for you. You can take them down later if you want, when this is all over. Okay, I said after giving it some thought. If nothing else, I figured it would slow McGregor down a minute or two. I'll have a man patrolling outside your house, as well as a man inside, just in case, he said. I nodded. I'll also put a couple of people on McGregor to see what we can find out. I'd handle it myself, but he knows me, and he'd spot me in a heartbeat. That makes sense. I won't be home for a while. I need to go see the boys. No problem. Live your life as you normally would, just be extra observant. Thanks, I will, I said. Look, if you hear anything from Kay or McGregor, let me know immediately, Marin said. I don't care what time of day or night. I'll do that, I said before leaving. I headed to Cliff and Julie's house to see the boys and grab some dinner. It had been a long day, and I knew it was only going to get worse. Julie had made lasagna and dished up some for me when I got there. Cliff and I spoke as I ate. What's the word, Shane? He asked. I told him about the threat against me and the boys. He shook his head as I described the phone call between Kay and McGregor. Well, the boys are safe here, he said. Do you have a gun? No. Kay would never allow me to buy one. She said she was scared of them. Nonsense. Hang on. He got up and came back a few minutes later with a 12-gauge pump shotgun. You know how to use one of these? He asked. I was in the Marine Corps for 4 years, qualified expert 4 years in a row. My dad has a shotgun much like that one. Good. It's fully loaded with rock salt. Not deadly, but it'll sting like hell. Take it and use it if you have to. What about you? I asked. He laughed. I have 2 more just like it and an AR-15. Thanks, I said. Anytime. Look, son, I can't begin to tell you how sorry I am about all of this. It's not your fault. You didn't make her do what she did. I just don't know how I'm going to explain it to the boys. Explain what, Dad? I heard John ask from the door. I motioned for him to come over, then hugged him as hard as I could. John, I've never lied to you boys before, and I'm sure as hell not going to start now. You should know that you may hear some pretty bad things about your mother in the next few days. She's been cheating on you, hasn't she? He asked. I slowly nodded. How do you break it to your young children that their mother is a cheating, immoral woman? Yes, son, she has, I said. I hate her, he exclaimed, tears falling from his eyes. No, son, you can't ever say that. She's done some bad things, and she'll have to pay for that, but she's still your mother. But you hate her, I can tell. Damn, I thought. How do you explain something like that to a 10-year-old boy? The thing is, he was right. At that moment, I hated her with every fiber of my being. It's different, son. What your mother did, she did specifically to hurt me. But if she hurt you, isn't she hurting Robbie and me as well? He asked. He was right again, and I was at a loss for words. She's hurting all of us. I don't think she fully understands that yet, but she will in time, son. She'll understand. John wrapped his arms around me and buried his face in my shoulder. I could feel his tears as he cried. I love you, son. I always will. I love you too, Dad, he said. I held him for what seemed like forever. Then my phone buzzed. I pulled it out and saw Ryan's number on the screen. We're ready to head over to search your house, Mr. McKnight, he said when I answered. Thanks, Ryan. I'm on my way. I put John down and explained that I had to head home. By then, Robert had come into the room. I gave the boys a hug and a kiss goodbye, shook Cliff's hand, and Julie gave me a hug at the door. I promised to fill them in the next time I saw them and left, shotgun in hand. I got home just as Bill's contractors were putting the finishing touches on the security bars now covering the windows. They had also installed security doors, and the foreman handed me the keys. I signed the paperwork agreeing to pay for the installation and put it on my credit card. I was somewhat surprised. The ornate iron bars looked better than I thought they would, but I still wasn't sure I wanted to keep them up after this was all over. I went inside, unloaded the shotgun, and placed it against the wall in my home office next to my computer. I put the shells in a desk drawer and kept the receiver open so it couldn't be mistaken for a loaded gun. Ryan and some officers showed up when I finished. I let them in, and one of them introduced himself as a DEA agent. Ryan showed me the search warrant, and they began their search. They looked through everything but were careful to put things back as they were. After about an hour, I heard someone call from upstairs. Found something, boss, one of the officers said. I wondered what they could have found as I followed Ryan up the staircase. We went into the room Kay used as a craft and sewing room. The closet door was open, and a bookcase she used to stash craft items was rolled away from the wall. Behind it was a cutout in the wall that held 2 fairly large metal boxes. Ryan looked at me before speaking. Did you know this was here? He asked. I shook my head. No idea. I generally stay out of this room out of respect for Kay. Ryan put on a pair of latex gloves and opened the first box. Inside were bottles of pills and packets that looked like samples one might get from a doctor's office. They were marked Acme Medical. Ryan looked at me. Isn't this the company your wife's boyfriend works for? He asked. Yes, it is, I said. The DEA agent took a look at the pills and read the labels. These all appear to be Schedule II controlled medications, he said. We'll have to run tests to verify that, but it looks like she's got several drugs here, including Vicodin, OxyContin, and Percocet. He looked at Ryan. We'll need to pay a visit to this clinic. Ryan nodded. I agree, he said. Opening the second box, we saw several bundles of crisp $100 bills. Ryan counted the bundles before turning to me. Looks like your wife has been pretty busy. I estimate she has about $120,000 right here. I shook my head, shocked. We also saw an envelope in the box. Ryan took it out and looked inside. There was a statement from a local bank indicating she had another $150,000 stashed in a savings account. It looked as though she had been making regular deposits over the last year and a half, being careful not to go over the $10,000 reporting limit. Looks like she's been structuring her deposits. Did you know about this? He asked. I understood the basic idea behind structuring, where people deliberately split up cash deposits to avoid mandatory reporting. I had heard stories of business owners getting caught up doing that, and some of them lost all their money and faced several years in jail. No idea, I said. Ryan handed the boxes to a technician who dusted them for fingerprints. Ryan looked around a bit more and saw Kay's laptop on her desk. We'll have to confiscate this, he said. I nodded in understanding. And these, he added, after opening one of her drawers and seeing several file folders with paperwork I had never seen before. A drawer held a key I had never seen before. It looked like a key one might use for a mailbox. Ryan picked it up and looked at it closely before placing it inside a plastic bag. After looking around some more, he guided me out of the room and spoke to me in private. Shane, I'm afraid we're going to have to mark this room as a crime scene, he said. We're going to seal the door when we're finished, and I don't want anyone going in there until we're done. Do what you have to do, I said. Just from what I've seen, this may become a federal case since it looks like her boyfriend has been transporting this stuff across at least one state line, he said. You may get a visit from the FBI. Hey, what about McGregor? I asked. Well, if we find his fingerprints on any of this, I'd say we have a strong case against him, he said. We'll see. In the meantime, stay out of trouble and let us know if anything happens. I will, I said. A couple of hours later, everyone but Bill and one of his investigators had left, carrying boxes full of case stuff. I just got word from my guy in the field, Bill said. McGregor was spotted going into a mailboxes etc. store. He was observed taking a package out and placing what looked like a paper lunch bag into a mailbox. About 10 minutes after he left, another person was seen opening the same box. That person took the bag and left. We've got pictures of the whole thing happening. It looks like that's how they're making the swaps. My guy made an inquiry and learned the box is registered to McGregor. Talk about hubris. Have you told Ryan? I asked. Yeah, I spoke to him just before he left. I don't get it. Why would a respected police officer do something like this? I have a hunch, but I need to look into it a bit more, he said. He motioned for the other man to join us. Shane, this is Peter Green. He works for me and will be staying here with you overnight. He'll also accompany you wherever you go. I have another man outside who'll be keeping an eye on things from there. I shook Peter's hand and noticed he looked like a linebacker. Peter is a former Navy SEAL, so he can take care of himself if anything happens. I want you to follow his lead. Got it, I said. Good. I'd better get going. You gents have a good evening and call if anything happens. We said our goodbyes, and I invited Peter to have a seat. I made a pot of coffee and ordered pizza for the two of us. We spent the evening eating pizza and watching television while swapping sea stories. Despite all appearances, Peter turned out to be a pretty nice guy. Finally, about 9 p.m., I checked for new activity on Kay's phone and, finding none, grabbed the now-loaded shotgun and turned in for the night, making sure Peter was set for the evening. Meanwhile, Kay was at the hotel. After I spoke with Mac, Monday morning I headed back to Dan's room. I felt somewhat bad about what we had planned but knew it was for the best. Mac and I had talked about this when we first started. I didn't like the idea, but Mac convinced me early on it would either be that or end up in jail for a very long time. I only hoped he could manage to spare the boys somehow. Dan and I spent the day shopping and planning for the evening's activities. Standing here in front of the bedroom mirror, I took inventory of what I saw. The tiny skirt I wore came about 2 inches below my crotch and was shredded on both sides, showing off my legs. I thought about wearing a thong but said, screw it, and decided to go pantyless. The top was nothing more than a tiny band that barely covered me and had several slits in the middle, showing off all my cleavage. I felt nearly naked wearing this thing and knew it wouldn't stay on for very long. I put on a pair of high heels and inspected myself in the mirror. God, I thought, giggling, even I would do me. I knew Shane would get a kick out of seeing me. Once I was finished, I went back to Dan's room and modeled my outfit for him. He took several pictures, making sure I posed so he could see me naked. Shane's going to go nuts when he sees this, Dan said, laughing. You ready? I am. It's been a long time since I've done a gangbang. I hope I still have it in me. Oh, you do? How many guys are you planning to take on tonight? As many as possible. The sky's the limit. We got to the club where Dan had reserved a room for a private party. We danced for a while, making sure to show off my assets to as many patrons as we could. In between dances, Dan spoke to several people, inviting them to join us later. Eventually, we went to the room and were followed by at least 15 guys. There was a table in the middle of the room with a leather-covered mattress on top. I climbed on top of the mattress as Dan invited the men inside. Once they all made themselves comfortable, he closed the door and set up his camera. I began by performing a teasing dance for my audience, which didn't take long since I was nearly undressed already. Once I was done, I had nothing left on and laid back on the mattress. Who wants to join me? I asked, smiling as they all raised their hands. Well then, what are you waiting for? For the next few hours, I experienced more intimacy than ever before. We repeated our interactions multiple times. At one point, Dan had me sit up to deliver a message to Shane and the others. I don't recall exactly what I said, but I remember it was harsh. By that time, though, I just didn't care anymore. It was early in the morning when we finally stopped, too exhausted to go on. Dan cleaned me up as best he could and got me dressed. I can't remember having ever been so sore in my life, but it was a good kind of sore, the kind that made me realize just how well and thoroughly screwed I was. He helped me stagger back to the hotel and cleaned me up in his shower. It must have been around 1 a.m. when he laid me down in the bed. I fell asleep as soon as my head hit the pillow and didn't wake up until the next afternoon. Meanwhile, Shane was at home. I woke up at 4:15 Tuesday morning when my tablet buzzed, notifying me of an email with an attachment. I rubbed the sleep out of my eyes, picked up the tablet, and opened the email. I found a message from what I now knew was Dan's email address. The email contained a short note instructing me to watch the attached video. I opened the video and saw my soon-to-be ex-wife sitting on a mattress placed on a table, wearing the shortest skirt I had ever seen her wear. She had no panties on. She stripped off her clothes and tossed them on the floor, inviting every man in the room to have sex with her. The men took her over and over again. Disgusted, I fast-forwarded through most of the sex acts until I saw her looking at the camera as though she was getting ready to say something. What do you think of your wife now, a-hole? You like what you see? I certainly hope so, because it's the last time you'll ever get to see this body again. By this time Friday, you'll be dead meat. That's right, a-hole. My partner Mac is going to come over and send you to hell, maybe the boys too. So enjoy it while you can. Personally, I can't wait to get back so I can piss all over your graves. Then I'm going to take your insurance money and spend the rest of my life screwing everyone I can. Laughing, she turned back to the men who were laughing and sneering but then looked back at the camera one last time. By the way, a-hole, screw you, she exclaimed, holding up both middle fingers. And screw the boys and screw your stupid family vacation. She laughed as she turned back to the men and continued her one-woman sex fest. Shocked and disgusted, I ended the video and sent it to Mirren. I called her to let her know I had sent it. She answered on the first ring. Good morning, Shane, she said, sounding like she was still asleep. Everything okay? No. Sorry to call you so early, but I just got a video from Kay and it's disgusting. But there's one part where she admits the plot to murder me and the boys. What? Mirren asked, shocked. Yeah, it's pretty shocking. Okay, I'll take a quick look. Be in my office at 7:30 if you can. I'll be there, I said. I got up, unable to go back to sleep, showered, shaved, and dressed. I went downstairs and made a fresh pot of coffee. Peter was already awake and watching the news. I offered him a cup of coffee, which he accepted. It was still early, so I made us both breakfast. We watched the news as we ate. I have to run to see my attorney early this morning. You're supposed to accompany me everywhere, right? That's what I was told, he said. Okay. Do you need to freshen up, take a shower, or anything? Already done, he said. I grabbed a couple of paper coffee cups and sleeves, poured us each a cup, and locked the door. We headed out. Marin was already in her office when we got there. Ryan and Bill were also in the office. She looked up as I came in and waved us inside. Good morning, Shane, she said. Ryan nodded and said a polite but curt, morning. Good morning, I said, nodding at Ryan. He looked like he hadn't gotten much sleep at all. We've been going through the video you got this morning, Marin said. I found the part you were talking about, and it sure looks like a confession to me. Looks like it to me as well, along with a threat of child endangerment. I've already informed my boss, she said. What did he say? He agrees with my assessment of the situation. The arrest warrant was transmitted to the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department last night, and the feds got one for Dan. They assure us that Kay and her lover will be picked up this morning. My office is fast-tracking the extradition papers even as we speak. That was fast, I said. Well, when there's a clear threat to children, we don't play around. Also, thanks to Bill's investigators and our friends at the DEA, we've been able to get enough to show probable cause to have McGregor arrested. They'll be picking him up at his apartment any time now, if they haven't already. I take it you've had some success in your investigation? I asked. We have. It seems McGregor had quite an operation working for him. The feds are officially calling it a criminal enterprise, which could mean a life sentence. Why? I asked, shaking my head. He's a police captain, for crying out loud. He's up to his eyeballs in debt, Bill said. His wife caught him cheating and divorced him a couple of years back, took him to the cleaners. He's barely able to make ends meet with child support, alimony, and everything else. Ryan looked at his watch. I'd better get going. I haven't slept in 2 days. Not much more I can do now, but wait. The feds are going to hit several clinics in the area, and they're taking an interest in your wife's lover. Call me if you hear anything, okay? I nodded and shook his hand, thanking him for his efforts. This definitely changes things with your divorce, Marin said. There's no doubt the court will let her have the kids. Besides, she'll be behind bars. I suggest we wait to serve her until we see what the courts do. We'll have a much better chance if she's in jail. However, there is still the matter of the 2 biological fathers. I've taken a preliminary look at both of them. I don't think you're going to get much of anything out of Mike Schock, the father of your oldest child. He simply doesn't have any real assets to speak of. Dr. Winstead, however, is another matter. If you'd like, Shane, I can start the paperwork and maybe negotiate something with him. We might even be able to settle without ever having to file anything or go to court. Is that something you'd like to pursue? Absolutely, I said. All right. Why don't you go on home, get some rest, and I'll be in touch. I thanked her and left, with Peter following close by. Meanwhile, at Kay's hotel, I woke early in the morning to a loud pounding. At first, I thought it was in my head, but I soon realized it was the door. I looked at the clock, 5:30 a.m. Who could be pounding on the door this early? I shook Dan awake, and he got out of bed, threw on his robe, and staggered to the door. Police, open up. I heard. Well, that answers that, I thought. But why would the police be knocking on our door so early? As soon as Dan opened the door, several huge police officers entered the room. 2 of them threw Dan against the wall and cuffed his hands behind his back. 2 of the officers approached me as I lay in bed. One of them looked down at me. Are you Kay McKnight? One of them asked. Yes, I am, I said, still groggy. Get up. You're under arrest, he said. Arrest? I asked, pulling the covers up to my chin. For what? Conspiracy to commit murder, for one. You're also under arrest for violating federal laws regarding the illegal diversion and sale of controlled substances. Now get up. I'm not dressed. Can I at least put some clothes on? The officer motioned to 2 female cops who grabbed something halfway decent out of the closet. The male officers turned their backs as the females handed me a pair of jeans, some socks, underwear, and a t-shirt. I pulled on the underwear and jeans, keeping myself covered, and threw on the t-shirt. As the female officers kept me covered, I sat on the edge of the bed and put on my shoes and socks. The female officers lifted me up and turned me around, reading my Miranda rights as they cuffed me. I looked around, but Dan was already gone. "What about my phone?" I asked. One of the female officers grabbed it off the dresser and put it in her pocket. They led me out of the building and threw me in the back of a cruiser with its lights flashing. The policewoman who grabbed my phone sat in back with me, while the other female officers sat in the front seat. Soon, we all headed to the station where we were booked. I felt so embarrassed when they took my mug shots. "Can I at least make a phone call?" I asked. The officer motioned to a phone on the desk. "Sorry, it's being held as evidence." "Use this one," she added, pointing to the desk phone. It took me a while to remember Shane's number. I was so used to my contact list. He answered after the second ring, and I could tell he was in the car. "What?" he asked angrily. "Shane, sweetie, it's me," I said, my voice shaky. "No," he said. "What do you want?" "Shane, I've been arrested," I told him. "Yeah, that's what happens when you plot to murder your husband and children. By the way, they're picking up your partner in crime this morning." "Oh no," I thought. Mac told me there was no way we would get caught. "Please, Shane, I need help," I begged. "Yeah, you do," he said. "Maybe you can get some when you finally go to prison. In the meantime, screw you." He ended the call, leaving me to stare at the handset. I handed it back to the officer at the desk. "How long will I be here? Can I post bail or something?" "No bail has been set. You're being held pending extradition to Pittsburgh." Oh God, I thought to myself. What about the man who was brought in with me, Dan King? The officer looked at her computer for a moment. "Mr. King is currently being extradited to face federal charges in Columbus," she said. That's it, I thought. I'm sunk. The officer took me to a holding cell where I sat on a cold, hard concrete seat and stared at the walls, shocked at how far and fast I had fallen. Meanwhile, Shane was at home. I ended the call with Kay and laughed. I couldn't believe the nerve of the witch. She actually expected me to help her after plotting to have me and the boys murdered. She could rot in prison for all I cared. Right now, I hated her more than I had ever hated anyone or anything in my entire life. "Talk about nerve," I said. Peter smiled and nodded as I drove. "Yeah," he said. We pulled up to my house and went inside. Out of curiosity, I checked to see if there was anything new on Kay's phone. There wasn't, so I called the hotel, explained the situation, and arranged to have her stuff packed up and sent home. After we sat in the living room and I turned on the television, Peter's phone rang, and he walked out of the room for a few minutes. As I surfed the channels, Peter told me to turn on the news. When he came back into the room, I changed to a local news channel. We saw a reporter standing in an apartment parking lot. Captain Alfred McGregor, a highly decorated police officer, was shot early this morning right here at this apartment complex, the reporter said, pointing to the apartment building behind him. According to authorities we spoke to, the shooting took place during an arrest that resulted from an investigation into a conspiracy to allegedly sell stolen prescription drugs. Details of the arrest and the investigation have not been released, but we have been told that the police chief will be holding a press conference later today. As I watched, my phone rang. I saw it was from Bill, so I answered. "Did you see the news?" he asked. I did. "What happened?" From what I was told, McGregor opened the door and started shooting when he saw the officers, Bill said. That's when they returned fire, killing him. "So I guess I'm safe then, right?" I asked. "Let's not jump the gun. I'd like Peter to shadow you for the rest of the week. I don't think McGregor has anyone coming after you, but let's err on the side of caution." "Sounds good to me," I said. "Have a good day. I'll talk to you later." "Thanks," I said, ending the call. I looked at Peter. "Guess you're staying here for the rest of the week," I said. "Do you need to go get anything to hold you over?" He shook his head. "I've got everything I need, but thanks anyway." I closed my eyes and breathed a sigh of relief. Later that day, Peter and I went to see the boys. After we ate, I brought them up to date on the day's events. "So, is Mom going to prison?" John asked. "It looks that way, son. Probably for a very long time." He became very quiet after that. I knew I would have my work cut out for me. It's hard enough being a single parent, but now the boys would have to deal with their mother being in prison. Thank God I have loving and understanding in-laws who love the boys as much as I do, I thought to myself. As the rest of the week went by quickly, I felt more secure knowing the boys and I would be safe. Maren told me Wednesday that Kay had been brought back to Pittsburgh. Her arraignment was set for Thursday, so I made it a point to be at the courthouse. As I watched, Kay was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit, her hands and feet shackled with chains connecting to another chain around her waist. It took no time at all for the judge to order her held without bail. She sobbed as they led her back out. Her lawyer, a public defender, asked if I could bring the boys to the jail to visit her. I informed him that the boys had made it clear they did not want to see her ever again. Maren informed me that the divorce papers were ready to be served and asked if I wanted to be present when the process server gave them to her. I agreed and met him at the jail. They brought Kay into the visiting area, still shackled. She looked up at me and gave a wan smile. I just glared at her. The process server approached her and asked if she was Kay McKnight. I am, she said. He gave her the papers and stepped back. As I watched, she pulled out the papers and began sobbing. Normally I would have offered to console her, but not anymore. I stepped forward and handed her a pen. Sign the papers, I told her. Aren't I getting anything? She asked, tears in her eyes. No, I said. Hell no, you're not going to need anything where you're going anyway. Can I at least see the boys? She asked. I shook my head. They don't want to see you anymore. As far as the boys and I are concerned, you're dead to us. And speaking of dead, you know your partner in crime was killed the day they tried to arrest him. I heard, she said. Please, Shane, forgive me, she begged. No. I loved you with all my heart for 13 years or more, and how did you repay me? By lying, cheating, and then robbing me of the ability to ever have children of my own. I hate you with every fiber of my being, and I'll never, ever forgive you for what you did to us. Now sign the divorce papers and be done with it. Sobbing, she slowly picked up the pen and signed the papers on all the lines Maren had marked. When she finished, I handed the packet over to the process server. Thank you. I'll get this right back to Mrs. Hawkins and she'll get them filed with the court, he said. I watched as he left and then turned back to Kay. I just want to know one thing, Kay, I said. She looked up at me. What? She asked. Why? Why did you do it? She shrugged her shoulders. I don't know. Because I wanted to and I could, I guess. And look at where that's gotten you, I asked. I shook my head. You have some serious issues, but that's not my problem anymore. I looked around the dark room. You know, I have a feeling you're going to die behind walls just like these. And you know what? I asked. No, Shane. What? She asked. I can't wait to piss on your grave when you do, I said, throwing her own words back at her. She began sobbing, but I didn't care. One last thing from the boys and me, I added. What? She asked, looking more forlorn than I had ever seen her before. I brought up both hands and extended my middle fingers. Screw you, witch, I said before turning away. I could hear her sobbing uncontrollably as I walked away. Too bad, I thought. Kay's murder-for-hire trial went fairly quickly. Because the boys had also been targeted in her scheme, she was sentenced to 25 years to life. The federal drug investigation dragged on for a few more months, and Kay was eventually given an additional life sentence for her role in what prosecutors officially labeled a criminal enterprise. She could have received a death sentence since the drugs she provided McGregor were ultimately linked to at least 2 deaths. Dan was tried separately for his role and also received a life sentence. Life for the boys and me went on. They never wanted to visit their mother, so I respected their wishes and didn't push it. Although Cliff and Julie did go see their daughter once a month, it took a while to get used to being a single parent. Cliff and Julie helped a lot, and the boys enjoyed spending time with their grandparents. Julie kept pushing for me to find a nice girl and settle down, but I simply wasn't ready. After what Kay did, I wasn't sure I could ever trust or love another woman again. I did, however, get a vasectomy a couple of weeks after Kay signed the divorce papers. Although the doctor said it could take a while before I could father any children, I felt it was the right choice. A few weeks after Kay signed the divorce papers, Maren contacted me, saying she had something for me. What? I asked. You'll need to come by my office, she said. So I went. When I got there, she pulled out a bottle of champagne from a bucket of ice and poured a couple of glasses. She handed me one along with an envelope. "Go on, open it," she said. I opened the envelope and found a check for $5 million, signed by Dr. Winstead. I looked at her, shocked. "How did you manage this?" I asked. "Well," she said, "I convinced Dr. Winstead that it would be in his best interest to settle with you after I pointed out the potentially destructive and embarrassing divorce his wife would almost certainly want, and the damage to his reputation as a scholar and a healer. He decided to settle out of court rather than try to explain why he had you undergo an unnecessary medical procedure after getting your wife pregnant." "Wow. Remind me to never get on your bad side," I said. She laughed. "That's your take after taxes, by the way. And he also paid all your fees and expenses." "He must be a very rich man," I said. She shook her head. "He is. He gave more than that to charity last year alone, so he's not hurting too bad." She lifted her glass in a toast, and I joined her. My self-imposed exile from women lasted about 5 years. It was then I met Lori Reynolds, one of John's teachers. Like me, she was a single parent with one son, younger than John. She was also divorced and trusted men about as much as I trusted women. We dated for about a year until I mustered enough courage to pop the question. She accepted, and we got married a couple of months later. About a year after that, she gave birth to a girl, Sarah Jane, named after both our mothers. Tears filled my eyes the first time I held that little bundle of joy. Lori realized that Sarah was the first child I had actually fathered and held me tight. I called the boys and their grandparents into the room and turned Sarah around so they could see her. "Boys," I said as Cliff and Julie looked on, "meet your new sister, Sarah Jane." They took right to her, and I knew everything would be all right as Lori, the children, and I moved ahead with the rest of our lives. Kay ended up going downhill and lasted just about another 6 years or so after Sarah's birth. A few months after her first conviction, Kay was diagnosed with HIV and was separated from the rest of the prison population. She died from full-blown AIDS about 13 years after that initial diagnosis. With no one willing to claim her body, she was buried in a potter's field with a simple marker bearing her prisoner number. I wanted so badly to fulfill my promise to piss on her grave, but Lori convinced me otherwise. "Come on, sit down here with me," she said as I stepped onto the back porch. As I sat down, she poured me a cup of her chamomile tea. I thanked her and took a sip, savoring the aroma. She looked at me for a moment before she said anything. "Shane, I know how hard it's been for you to get past what Kay did, but you have to let it go and move forward," she said. "It's so damn hard, babe," I said. "And it still hurts like hell." "I know," she said. "You know, if I thought it would do any good, I'd go with you and piss on her grave with you. You know that, don't you?" I nodded my head. "Yeah," I said. "But she's gone now, and she can never hurt you again." Lori said, "Look at it this way. Kay suffered with AIDS for almost the same length of time you were married to her. She died in that awful place, unloved, unforgiven, forsaken, and all but forgotten. She paid the ultimate price for what she did. What more could you possibly do?" I had to admit she had a point. "Have you told the boys yet?" she asked. By now, all of the boys had left home and were in college. I told Jan and Robert. At first, they thought I was talking about you. Then I told them I was referring to their birth mother. "How did they take it?" she asked. "They really didn't seem to care," I said. "What does that tell you?" she asked. "They've moved on, I guess," I said in response. "That's right," Lori said. "They've moved on, and so should you. Shane, you're the best husband a girl could ever want, and you're the best father any child could ever ask for. Think about it, you loved and raised John and Robert even after you learned you weren't their biological father. You accepted and adopted Mark even though you weren't his biological father. He's a good boy," I said. She smiled. "Thanks, and a large part is due to you. You taught him what it means to be a man, and I know for a fact he thinks of you as his real father." We looked at Sarah, who was playing in the yard. "Didn't you tell me once that Kay wanted Dan to give her a daughter?" Lori asked. "Yeah, that's right," I said. It seemed like an eternity had passed since that fateful Friday night, but I never forgot what she said. "Just think, if she hadn't been so stupid, greedy, and selfish, you just might have given her that daughter, and Sarah would never have been born." I had to admit she was right. I hadn't thought of the irony of the whole situation before. I gave my wife a kiss. Suddenly, I heard Sarah as she came up to us holding a white flower with 3 petals. "Daddy, look what I have for you," she said. I looked up as she handed the flower to me. I recognized it as a white trillium, a flower that grows in abundance in the parks here. Kay would often make small bouquets with them. I liked the white variety but hated the rotten odor of the red ones. "Thank you, sweetheart," I said. "That lady said you really like these," Sarah said. Lori and I looked over the yard but didn't see anyone. "What lady?" Lori asked. "That one," Sarah said, pointing to the area of the yard where she had been playing. We looked but saw no one. Chills ran down our spines as we looked at each other. There was no indication that anyone had ever been there. "What else did the lady say?" Lori asked. Sarah shrugged her shoulders. "She said to tell you she's sorry for everything and wants you to forgive her," Sarah said, looking at me. I still saw no one, but I noticed the vegetation sway slightly as if touched by a light breeze. We felt a sudden blast of cold air, but it was gone as fast as it came. I looked at Lori, a tear beginning to form in my eye. I nodded my head. "Maybe it's time I do," I said, knowing it would be the hardest thing I had ever done. Lori smiled, and Sarah hugged my neck. After all, Kay was now dead and buried, a part of my past. These 2 girls are my present and my future, I thought, and they deserve my full love and attention. "I forgive you, Kay," I whispered, looking up at the sky. Sarah hugged me tighter and kissed my cheek. "I love you, Daddy." "Thank you." She crawled off my lap and went running back into the yard. I looked at my wife, wondering what the hell had just happened. She smiled and kissed me full on the lips. At that moment, I felt happier and more content than I had in a very long time, as if a huge burden had been lifted from my shoulders. Maybe, I thought to myself, happiness really is the best revenge.